Ladies and gentlemen, please direct your attention now to the area in front of the pitcher's mound for tonight's ceremonial first pitch. And please welcome the President of the United States.
He said to me once, everybody always asks, did you think you wanted to be president when you were younger? He always said, I wanted to be Willie Mays.
I played Little League Baseball in Midland. Surprisingly enough, I was the only president thus far to have played Little League Baseball.
I grew up playing stickball at PS 94 Queens, which was the New York City version of baseball when you don't have a lot of fields and you have concrete.
I was a New York Giant fan. I didn't care for the Yankees just based on the fact that they won all the time.
I'm 8 years old. Mantle, it's a home run batting left-handed. I still can hear it, how loud the crack of the bat was.
Seeing that beautiful green the first time you see it as a kid from Brooklyn, it's like seeing the Grand Canyon.
Baseball is a 162-game season. You have ups and downs during the season. It's a marathon. It kind of reminds me of life.
You don't give up until the final strike. Maybe Americans always believe until the last moment that they can still win.
I just remember waking up late morning and having a message from Jorge Posada saying that let him know if I hear anything about the game, because something happened at in New York at the Twin Towers. So I turned on the television, and that's when I saw what had happened.
Of course, my wife had the TV on, and I was looking for my other TV to turn something on that my daughter didn't have to watch what I was watching.
These acts of mass murder were intended to frighten our nation into chaos and retreat. But they have failed.
You and I today, we got up and we came to work. And we're thinking we're gonna leave here. Well, those people that lost their lives, they thought they were going home that day. They were just going to work.
All of a sudden, baseball, how sky high we were from winning as often as we did, baseball wasn't on the front burner anymore.
All Major League Baseball games have been postponed tonight. It is the first time in 56 years since the death of President Franklin Roosevelt that baseball has postponed all Major League games for a reason other than a work stoppage.
You had to keep reminding people that things are going to get back to normal. But I would at times not be sure of that.
Just imagine Manhattan with no cars, just people walking the streets. It was like it was a movie set.
On September the 14th, I flew to New York City. You couldn't see very well. The odor of death was in the air. And I kept looking in these bloodshot eyes to these first responders who had spent hours searching for their buddies. They kind of looked at me, and I felt looked at me somewhat suspiciously. I mean, I was a kind of a silver spoon guy. And they frankly didn't have any idea who I was.
This nation stands with the good people of New York City and New Jersey and Connecticut as we mourn the loss of thousands of our citizens. I can hear you. I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you. And the people who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
You all had the same purpose. You wanted to heal, and you wanted to help in any way you could.
We went to the Armory, which was the place all of the families were going to wait to see if there was any information on their loved one.
For me, it was uncomfortable because you don't really know what to say.
We play baseball. This is life and death. And I didn't know if it was our place to go there. And Bernie Williams went up to this one woman and he said, I don't know what to say, but you look like you need a hug. And then with that, somebody from each family or each group would come over and would show us pictures of their loved ones that they in all likelihood had lost, with Yankee hats on, Yankee jerseys on, jackets, and all of a sudden it just hit me. I said, you know, baseball had an obligation.
Major League Baseball, as a social institution, can best be helpful by resuming play at the most appropriate time. I believe that time is Monday.
And we welcome you, everybody, to Pittsburgh, one of 6 sites where Major League Baseball will renew its season. The overriding question at each one of these sites, is it time? Is it the right place? Are you doing the right thing?
I remember seeing the Yankees' first game after the attack, and the sign said, "Chicago loves New York."
Chicago says we are united. We are together.
In Fenway Park, they played New York, New York, and they all cheered for New York. All those expressions of support made you feel like you weren't alone.
Toward first, the Yankees will score a run.
For the first time, I think, in the history of baseball, people around the country were pulling for the Yankees to win.
And with the mayor and president imploring New Yorkers to live life as they normally would, the Yankees had a chance to do just that by clinching the American League East.
For us, the way we looked at it was, if only for 3 hours, if we could give people something to cheer for, then we were doing our job.
Now you see that, whoa, everything's breaking their way. It's old Yankee magic coming back once again.
But we need something. You need a life raft. You need something to cling to. And for us in New York, it became baseball.
Ball game over! Yankees win! Yankees win!
And so we end up in the World Series.
There was an expectation that the president would be invited to throw out the first pitch of the first game of the World Series between the New York Yankees and the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Now, I had never been to a World Series game. As the co-managing partner of the Texas Rangers, we didn't even come close to going to the World Series. I had been invited by the commissioner, and there was some suggestion that maybe the best place to go would be Arizona, since that's where Game 1 was being played. I rejected that out of hand. If you're going to throw out a pitch during a World Series with the Yankees, at this point in history, there's only one place to go: Yankee Stadium.
I knew the symbolism and what it would mean for Americans when we felt so vulnerable and when we were still afraid, and then this was one of our traditions.
I remember the example of Franklin Roosevelt when he said, "Let's play ball," during World War II. I'm confident his decision was made because he thought it would be good for the soul of the nation. And so when presented with the opportunity of throwing out the first pitch, I seized it because I knew that baseball could be a part of the recovery after 9/11.
Those 49 days since 9/11 were a period of palpable fear that a second wave of attacks was going to strike the United States.
We had an anthrax scare where people had been receiving letters with anthrax in the letters. We had young men and women who had already been sent into harm's way. So America was on edge.
Laura's very stoic. When I told her we're going to go to Yankee Stadium for our first World Series game together, she didn't say much, and I'm confident that she never would have said, "Don't go, you might get killed." That's not her style, even though she might have been feeling that way.
This is one of those challenging moments that the service has to face. Sure, I'd love to, and my predecessors would love to have said, "No, you're not going. You've got to go back to your room." I'd love to say that, but we know we can't. So the job of the service is, how do we make this work?
My view of it all was there are good people protecting me. They're doing the best they can possibly do. And if it's my time to go, it's my time to go. I don't think you can lead a nation if you're worried about your own safety. I don't think you can send a signal to people, let's get on with our lives, if the president is concerned about his own life.
President Bush loves, eats, sleeps, and drinks baseball. His dad was a baseball fan. His dad was the captain of the Yale baseball team. His dad met Babe Ruth.
It's really part of the family legacy. And for George W. Bush, I think it was a little something to live up to.
With an extra special ceremonial first pitch, a real Texas hero, the President of the United States.
Oftentimes, elected officials throw out pitches. One such occasion was when Dad threw out one. And I remember him warming up, and I remember him walking out to the mound. He had his first baseman's mitt on, as I recall. And I felt terrible for him. He had a good arm, and yet, in front of the crowd, he bounced it.
I was always really surprised that my dad went into politics because my dad had his dream job, which was working for the Texas Rangers. My sister and I were obsessed with baseball because my dad loved baseball so much. And I still love baseball for that reason, because it reminds me of my family and our memories growing up.
The president had thrown out a ball as President of the United States at a baseball game.
The President of the United States of America.
My excuse for having bounced the pitch was that my foot slipped on the rubber. Yeah, I made the mistake of wearing cowboy boots. You know, maybe I was trying to be too macho or something, I don't know.
He said, Nicky, did you hear I bounced the pitch? I wanted to say, oh, no, sir, I didn't hear you bounce the pitch. I mean, he is the president. So I said, yes, sir, I did hear about it. He says, yeah, he says, I slipped on the mound.
You know, I don't know why it matters, but it did matter. I wanted to throw a strike.
I think that he knew when he said yes to doing this, he would have to throw a great pitch.
The stadium was searched for 2 days in great, great detail. It was guarded for the days the Yankees were on the road losing in Arizona.
Diamondbacks win it. They're up 2-0. The Yankees will not panic, and they are anxious to get back to New York in Yankee Stadium.
It wasn't until the day of the game that you knew for sure he was going to be there.
Game 3 tonight. Must win for the Yankees. Must win.
I walked into the Oval Office the day before and said, look, the reporting tells us that there may be an attack that's bigger than 9/11.
Ominous headline in the Post. Watch out. A new terror alert. Sometime within a week, the feds say something might happen.
I'd flown into New York early that morning to do Regis and Kelly.
There's been such a presence of you and your husband in this city, in this time of great uncertainty, the fact that you haven't been afraid to come.
Well, I know also New Yorkers feel particularly vulnerable. And especially like today when we read there's another high alert. I was nervous for all of us, for everybody in the stadium, because then we worried that every crowd was a target.
The worry for me was not Yankee Stadium. The worry for me was, is there another target in New York? Because New York turns out to be an iconic target from Al-Qaeda's perspective. It represents our economy and everything that they believe is distorted about our values. Could it be anthrax? Yes. Could it be nuclear? Yes. That's in the back of your mind here, and that's the context the president and we're dealing with in this moment.
The security was so intense, it was like an armed camp. I have to go through 2 metal detectors and be frisked to go to a baseball game now. All right, if that's what it takes, I'm going to my game.
I got on Marine One and choppered toward Yankee Stadium. I remember looking down at the World Trade Center site, and my memories flashed right back to the emotions of that day, the sadness, and so that was on my mind as we head into the Yankee Stadium.
We get off the helicopters, we get into the cars, we move to the stadium, we arrive, we go into the tunnels and to the clubhouses, and then it hits you. Wait a second. Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig could have actually been leaning on this wall.
I should have been thinking, I'm the National Security Advisor. The president's about to undertake something really remarkable. But that's not what I was thinking. I was thinking, I'm in Yankee Stadium.
The agent said you'd be wearing a bulletproof vest. And I didn't say to him what I felt like saying, which is, hey man, I got to throw the pitch. You know, you wear the bulletproof vest. I generally thought it was very important to accommodate the Secret Service. Their job was to protect me, and therefore I wanted to make their job easier, not harder, and so I put it on. I then went to the warm-up area. They've got a mound there, and started throwing in front of the mound just to get warm, and then got on the mound and threw some, bounced a couple, I might add. And anyway, Derek Jeter ambles in.
And then I see President Bush in there, and he's taking it pretty serious, trying to get loose.
He says, say, are you going to throw in front of the mound? I said, what do you think? He said, this Yankee Stadium, you better throw on top of the mound, otherwise they'll boo you. And I said, okay, yeah, I'll do that. And just as he's leaving, he turns around and says, but don't bounce it, they'll boo you.
We had a little fun with him down in the tunnel, so we tried to make light of the situation as much as possible.
When it came time for him to get ready, I could see he was nervous.
We are in New York, and we are proud to be in the Bronx for Game 3 of the 2001 World Series. Security at an all-time high outside, but once inside, these fans are ready to make some noise for their Yankees. Down 2-0 to the Arizona Diamondbacks, moments away from the start of Game 3.
The sense of anticipation, the fear, there was an uneasiness in the crowd. So it was a nervous anxiety that was kind of a strange, toxic combination of, fear of terrorism, but also we're losing. There was that thing. There was still the baseball in it.
Outside of being an American, I'm also a New Yorker, and I know people that were here that day. So I know if I'm feeling it, God knows what's going through his mind.
At one point before emerging from the dugout, I kind of nudged old Nick and said, are we going to be okay?
And I remember as clear as day turning to him in this quick second and saying, sir, these people out here, if anyone wanted to do something, they would eat the person alive.
Ladies and gentlemen, please direct your attention now to the area in front of the pitcher's mound for tonight's ceremonial first pitch.
I remember being so nervous and thinking, should I look? Should I even look right now? Because I'm scared of what could happen.
And please welcome the President of the United States.
The gravity of the moment never really hit me until the first step coming out of that dugout.
President walking out to the mound to thunderous applause, wearing an FDNY blue jacket.
I remember the noise. It was deafening. I remember looking around the stadium at this giant crowd.
The place just went berserk. This is a moment. Your politics go away. Here's the young president of the United States handed this awful baton to run with, and he stood up and basically said, F you.
He went by me, he says, you gonna kick their butts tonight? I said, we're gonna try.
He spoke to the American people in a way that no speech could ever have done.
The conversation about, is it safe? You're going to open ballparks. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. I mean, that was the statement saying, no, we're going to go on with our lives.
That pitch wasn't going to bounce. I don't think it was capable of bouncing. Maybe it was Yankee magic. All the ball players always talk about it. I hope it was. I hope my childhood heroes played a part.
He threw a great pitch, and then we played baseball. For a few hours that night, I could sit with friends, family, with people that I grew up with who were in deep pain, who wanted to know that it was safe and okay to live again.
You know, those 3 games in Yankee Stadium were electric. There was no other way to describe them.
People thought that, we were done in the 9th inning.
And the Diamondbacks are 1 out away from taking a 3-1 lead.
I've joked about it goes to the players past, being at Yankee Stadium. No matter how bad it looks, don't worry, ghosts will show up at some point.
1 on, 2 out. Martinez hits one to deep right center field.
And then it happens again.
Jeter hits it into right. Back the wall.
Mr. November, Derek Jeter hits a home run. I mean, people were going crazy.
For those few days, we didn't think about anything else, but the World Series and about baseball.
There's a reason that every country has its sports that it loves. They embody somehow the nation and the national spirit and the national pride, and they rally around these sports figures. And at times of national triumph, we rally around them in joy. At times of national tragedy, we rally around them to remember who we are.
Even though we lost that World Series in 2001, it was still the most exciting and the best World Series I've ever been involved in.
The country which was rallying at the time had further cause to rally, to see baseball being played. And I was just a part of that. I didn't realize how symbolic it was, though, until I made it to the mound. Standing on the mound at Yankee Stadium was by far the most nervous moment of my presidency.
It was something that we all needed to see. I'm talking about all of America needed to see it.
That pitch transcended sports, transcended politics, it transcended history, and it was quite a moment.
He didn't have to talk about it because he threw a strike. If he would have bounced it in New York, he would have had to talk about it. He would have had to explain himself. So, he was very, very lucky that he threw a strike.